So let's cultivate our motivation and always recall that although the behavior of some sentient being, or even the thoughts of some sentient being, may be completely non-virtuous and morally just totally corrupt, that doesn't mean that the person is bad. So we have to differentiate the behavior from the person and even the thoughts from the person. Because the person has the potential to become a fully awakened Buddha, which means that those thoughts, that behavior, is not an intrinsic part of their mind or their mental continuum. So when we see the person, we always see hope for change, for peace to come in their mind. And at the same time, we can say that certain thoughts are harmful and certain behavior is corrupt. So it's very important to remember this so that we can always keep a mind of compassion towards living beings themselves, and at the same time distinguish between what's wholesome and what isn't. In the same way, forgiving people simply means that we are giving up our anger. It doesn't mean that what they did is okay. So again, this is important differentiation to make. We can stop our anger towards someone's behavior and at the same time say that behavior was wrong. So these kind of discernments, we hear about them, but then we have to really contemplate them, understand them well, and then apply them to our own experience. And if we do that, we can save ourselves and others a lot of pain and avoid creating a lot of unwholesome karma. And that also gives us the opportunity to see that it's totally possible to have love and compassion for each and every living being. That's not something that is impossible. It's totally possible. And so even if we may not have it heartfelt at the moment, at least generating it at some level, generating that kind of love and compassion for other living beings. Again and again, putting that seed in our mind. And that helps to reshape our thoughts, recondition our behavior and our emotions. So let's again generate bodhicitta, wishing to benefit other living beings equally to the fullest extent, and aspiring to attain Buddhahood so that we can do that in the most effective way. There's a few questions. I thought I'd start with these questions. So one says, can you please explain how our Buddha nature is impermanent? Or is the clear light nature of our mind permanent? Okay, so Buddha nature, which is explained in volume 3, which is coming out in January, has two aspects. One refers to the ultimate nature of our mind, its emptiness of inherent existence. That emptiness is permanent. Okay. The other aspect is the evolving or transforming Buddha nature, which refers to the clarity and the clear and cognizant nature of the conventional mind. And that clear and cognitive nature continues on to awakening. Okay, so it's impermanent, but it's eternal. Okay, I think it might be helpful to do a comparison of impermanent and eternal so that people can get a clearer idea. So remember, impermanent means changing moment by moment. It doesn't mean that that thing lasts forever, which is eternal. Permanent means it doesn't change moment by moment. And permanent also doesn't mean it lasts forever, that it's eternal. Okay, so what's an example of something that is both impermanent and eternal? Okay, our mental continuum, the clarity, the clear and cognizant nature of the mind is both impermanent and eternal. Okay, it's eternal because even though it's changing moment by moment, there doesn't exist any other force that can stop the continuum of the mind. Yeah, you have a river that's flowing along. You can stop the continuity of that river, but you can't stop the continuity of the mind. Yeah, there's nothing that can do that. Okay, now, what's something that is impermanent but not eternal? The cup. What's something talking about the mind that would be impermanent but not eternal? Yeah, the afflictions. So they change moment by moment, but it's possible to cut them off because they haven't entered into the nature of the mind. So they are not eternal. Okay. What is something that is eternal but not impermanent? Yeah, just in general, the emptiness of the mind, or emptiness in general. It doesn't change moment by moment, and it lasts forever. What is not impermanent and not eternal? The emptiness of the cup. Yeah, the emptiness of a moment of anger, the emptiness even of my present mind. Okay. So people have a better idea about the difference between these two and what's what? Okay, then this question I haven't read yet. I've understood that the karma we create influences the environment that we find ourselves in. For example, the environmental effects of sexual misconduct are to be born in an unclean place. How is one to understand the following paragraph found on page 10? What does shaping the evolution of the external world mean? So here's the paragraph. How is the physical evolution of a universe related to sentient beings, their mental states, and their experiences of pain and pleasure, happiness and unhappiness? This is where karma comes in. Karma is intentional actions done by sentient beings. As the potencies remaining from these actions ripen, they shape the evolution of the external world and condition our experiences of them. Okay, so the answer to that comes, I think it's in chapter 6. So we're getting to it. No. Oh, no, it's... Maybe it's in the next volume. Yeah, I think it's in the next volume, maybe chapter 6 in the next volume. Anyway, the answer is, as His Holiness explained it, and this is not something easy to understand, is that when a universe is forming, the karma, certain beings will have the karma to be born in that universe. And so their collective karma at the initial stage of the evolution of the universe can influence how the universe evolves. Yeah. But after that, once the universe is kind of evolved, then how things go depend much more on physical, biological, chemical, and so on, that kind of cause and effect. Okay, so, as His Holiness sees it, our karma did not cause the earthquake, but our karma influences whether we're there when the earthquake occurs. So that would be, our individual karma that would ripen and influence whether we're there or somewhere else, whether we get hurt or whether we don't get hurt, and so on. But that's different than the karma that would ripen at the very, very beginning of the evolution of the universe, which might just, influence the structure of the solar system or, something kind of like that. Okay. As to more on that, I declare ignorance, and I have a good reason, because they say only the Buddha knows all the intricacies of karma. Okay.
So I have a question related to that. So let's say something like environmental pollution and the weather patterns changing, climate change. Mm-hmm. Could that be related to karma? Because it's especially the stuff that humans create that influence the environment. Would that be related to karma as well?
Well, that's okay. That. When we say karma yes. means action.
Right.
So yes, that is related to present human action.
Okay.
That we are polluting the environment.
Okay.
It's not related to past action. Mm-hmm. It's related to what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Okay? And so we have responsibility for that right now. His Holiness talks about, imagines a conversation between God and Buddha. This imagination, where they're commiserating because everybody is praying to them to stop the climate change and the environmental pollution. And God and Buddha, send down the message, look, you guys created the problem, you fix it. Okay.
A little related to that. So, for example, Lama Rinpoche recommends people to recite Golden Light Sutra for world peace. How does that work?
Ask Rinpoche. Okay? People always ask me, why does so-and-so say this? Why does so-and-so do that? How am I supposed to know? You should ask the person who, I think it has to do with our creating more virtuous karma. And, then by the creation of virtuous karma, it can maybe interfere with the ripening of some negative, previously created karma. That's my guess. Okay? People are always saying, there's some scandal. Why is this Lama acting like that? Why are you asking me? Ask him. He's the one doing it. I have no idea. Huh? When you think, why does, so-and-so do this and that or think this and that? I don't know. I can make some guesses, but you're better off asking the person themselves, which is the last person you want to ask. But so that's why we go around and we check out with everybody else why we think so-and-so's acting that way. And all we get is a bunch of people's guesses. So we get all sorts of wrong information, form wrong ideas about that person's behavior. But we never have the courage to go to the person and just say, I care about you. Can you help me understand what you're thinking and feeling and why this behavior is happening? That's what we need to do. Yeah? But we're so scared. So instead, we all gossip behind somebody else's back. Yeah, putting together, we psychoanalyze them. Yeah, oh, I know why they're doing that. They're passive aggressive. No, they aren't. They're bipolar. No, they aren't that. They're obsessive. OCDC. Oh, no. No, obsessive, compulsive, disorder. Huh? OCD. Ah. What's OCDC? I didn't say ECDC. No, you guys are here. Okay, let's talk about emptiness. Okay. So we were saying here, we're on page 11, yeah, that the third and fourth seals are closely related. All phenomena are empty and selfless, and Nirvana is true peace. Okay, so in the context of the four truths and the common view of them by all the Buddhist schools, emptiness refers to the absence of a permanent, partless, independent soul or person, okay? Like the idea of the Hindu Atman or the Christian soul, okay? And the selfless refers to the absence of a self-sufficient, substantially existent person, which is a person that can be identified independent of the aggregates. So they have a different nature from the aggregates. Now, according to the Prasangika tenet system, both selflessness and emptiness refer to the lack of inherent existence of all phenomena. But for the common, position, emptiness and selflessness are different, and they both refer to they're both looking at the person, not at all phenomena. Okay. The root of our, and so all the tenet schools say that ignorance is the root of samsara, but how they define ignorance is different. Okay? And so thus what they negate in the meditation on selflessness is also different. The root of our cyclic existence is the ignorance that grasps phenomena as possessing some sort of independent existence, selfhood, or self-existence. The word ignorance conjures up the image of something inauspicious or undesirable, and it is indeed so. Just as whatever grows from a poisonous seed will be poisonous, everything that arises from ignorance will be undesirable. As long as we remained under the control of ignorance and erroneous views, there is no possibility for lasting joy. Okay, so that's the situation of being in samsara, that we're under the influence of ignorance and all the wrong views and all the afflictions. And as long as that's the case, we're not going to have any kind of lasting peace or joy. Okay? So, it's fine to tweak our samsara, but don't expect you're going to tweak samsara and arrive at heaven or, nirvana or something like that. It's, that would be like trying to get oil out of sand. It's just not going to happen. So we may look, and when we meditate on the defects of samsara, we may feel a lot of disillusionment, like, oh, but I thought all this stuff was going to bring me happiness, and now when I'm really looking at it, this is a dead end. And so we may feel disillusioned and initially quite like, well, then what is happiness? How am I going to find happiness? Because all sentient beings want to be happy and peaceful. So the answer to that is that the freedom from cyclic existence, is what is real peace and happiness. It's the fourth one here. Nirvana is true peace. When we've completely eliminated the causes for samsara, then there's real peace in the mind. Why is there real peace? Because then we're never going to have anger arise in our mind again. So no matter how many people criticize you, you're never going to get bent out of shape and angry. Okay, no matter how many people are better than you, you don't get jealous. So that would be kind of nice. Don't you think that would be nice to have a mind that was more pacified and not so much like a yo-yo, always going up and down? Oh, I want this. How can I get it? How can I get it? I got it. I'm happy. It broke. Oh, I want this. I want this. I got this. I got this. And it's not like I thought it was going to be. So when we change our mind, what's happening is that then any situation that comes about, our mind interprets the situation differently. It interacts with the environment differently. And we don't have all these very painful afflictions and unrealistic expectations come up. And then, of course, you wind up having a different kind of body, and, there's all sorts of other benefits that come. Okay. So how the world appears to you becomes completely different. Then, if you're, an Arya Bodhisattva, then you can choose the rebirth you take. And actually, it isn't an ordinary rebirth. It's probably going to be more like an emanation. So, there's a lot of actual freedom that comes from eliminating ignorance and afflictions and so on. Okay. So that's kind of grade triple A happiness. Yeah. The happiness we get from chocolate now. And chocolate could mean whatever it is you're attached to. Your boyfriend, girlfriend, your jewelry, I don't care what it is, chocolate means that. Yeah. But we also are attached to chocolate. Attachment to worldly pleasure is grade D happiness. Yeah. We think it's spectacular because we simply are unfamiliar with the possibilities for how we can be, that we're unfamiliar with alternatives. So we think that what is available to our senses is the only kind of happiness there is. And if that disappoints us, then we're completely lost. But that's not the case. There exists grade triple A happiness. That's what we're trying to do. That's why you're here this week is because you want triple A happiness. If you already got it from previous samsaric experiences, you wouldn't be here. But as they say, we've been born as everything in samsara, done everything in samsara, and still, haven't arrived at some satisfactory state of being. That's because we've done everything but transform our mind, but practice the Dharma. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do differently in this life is, by transforming our mind, really, rooting out the garbage that is keeping us in this cesspool. According to the Prasangikas, ignorance is not simply a state of unknowing. It actively grasps or conceives things to exist in a way that they do not. Superimposing inherent existence on persons and phenomena, it apprehends what is contrary to reality. Whereas persons and phenomena do not exist inherently under their own power, ignorance grasps them as existing in that way. Okay? So the lower philosophical tenet schools say that ignorance is just like fog. It's an unknowing. Yeah. The Prasangikas take it a step further and say it is an active misapprehension of how things actually exist. It's not just the fog obscuring that reality. It's the mind that holds the exact opposite as true. Okay? As we investigate how phenomena actually exist, our conviction that ignorance is erroneous increases. Okay, so again, it's like, the example of you have a really trusted friend that you think, will never betray you. And then you start noticing some funny things going on. Okay? As you notice more and more funny things going on, your conviction that your original perception of this person is incorrect increases because you're beginning to see the opposite of what you thought this person was. So in the same way, we have a way that we perceive persons and phenomena right now. Yeah. As we really explore how things actively exist, we become more and more convinced that our present perception is incorrect. Okay? So in this way, you begin to see that as our wisdom increases and we begin to see, get some kind of idea of how things actually exist, it already begins to harm the ignorance in that we don't take, we don't trust the ignorant views so much. Okay? So on a much grosser level, okay, like anger, right now when we're angry, we trust our anger. My anger is absolutely true. I'm seeing the reality of the situation. Okay? But as we begin to really investigate our anger and how it conceives and interprets things, we begin to understand that anger exaggerates and anger projects, and anger is based on interpreting everything through me, I, my, and mine, when in fact the world doesn't exist based on me. Okay, that's a big surprise, isn't it? Yeah. And so then we begin to see, when I'm angry, I'm seeing things in a distorted way. I'm only seeing them through the lens of me and what's important to me and the details I pick out of the situation and focus on, and how I project another person's motivation. And so as we explore, we begin to, have some doubt about our anger. If our anger really is based on true assessment, an accurate assessment of the situation, or if maybe our anger is misdirected or outright wrong. Okay? As we begin to have that doubt about the validity of our anger, then when anger arises, we don't follow it quite so easily. Yeah? We'll begin to have some doubt like, anger's coming, but before I believe this story, maybe I better look a little bit more closely. Yeah? And then in that way, we begin to, dismantle the anger. Okay, take it apart. And so we do that also for our attachment. Yeah. When we see something that we like, boy, this is 100% wonderful. Here I'm not talking about seeing the Dharma or seeing the Buddha. They are 100% wonderful. But when we're seeing some samsaric object, like when you first fall in love, yeah? When you fall in love with somebody, they don't do anything wrong, do they? Yeah? There could be a bunch of red flags, rushing by you, but you ignore them. Because this person is just fantastic, and I feel so good when I'm around them. Yeah. But then when you start to analyze a little bit closer, yeah, then, are they really that great? I mean, if they were that great, why doesn't everybody feel the same way about them that I do? Why is it that some people can't stand them? The person that I think is so wonderful. Yeah? If really objectively like that, they're like that, everybody should see them that way. So we begin to question, our perception. Are we seeing this accurately? Or again, are we interpreting it through me, I, my, and mine? What this person says and does makes me feel good. Yeah. But what they say and do makes somebody else feel crummy. Do I think a person is objectively existing simply because of the way I see them? Don't I have to include, common perception too? Don't I have to see the whole being instead of cherry pick, particular details about them that's so wonderful? Okay? And so when we start to analyze in that way, then the attachment starts going down and we become able to see the other person more realistically. Yeah. Then when they're in a bad mood, we're not puzzled, Then when they criticize us, we're not puzzled because we're seeing them more accurately. Yeah. And so we're not expecting them to be the panacea for all of our problems, which is what we often want other people to be, isn't it? Yeah. That person's going to solve all my problems. This relationship will do it. Yeah. So that kind of mind actually interferes with loving the person. Because that kind of mind, doesn't see the person accurately and has a bunch of strings attached. Whereas the kind of love we're trying to cultivate in the Buddha Dharma is a wish for somebody to have happiness and the causes of happiness simply because they exist, not because they make us feel good, but simply because they exist. And if we wish that on one living being to be happy simply because they exist, then it would make sense to wish the same thing for every other living being, no matter how they treated us. Because if love doesn't have any strings attached, then we want to be able to give it to everybody. When love has strings attached, then it's reserved for the people who please us. And when they stop pleasing us, our love and our feeling towards them changes. Or I should say, our attachment and our feeling towards them changes. Okay? So this is something to think about. What we call love in our samsaric culture is probably a mixture of love and attachment. Yeah, very often going to the attachment side. Okay. Now you all feel so let down. Oh, I thought that was true love. Finally! They showed up on their white horse, and now you're telling me that it was a Trojan horse. It wasn't a real one. So you check up. Don't believe me. You look at your own experience and see if what I said is accurate or inaccurate. According to, as we investigate how phenomena actually exist, our conviction that ignorance is erroneous increases. By seeing and familiarizing ourselves with the wisdom knowing reality, we gradually erode the force of ignorance and the undisciplined mind. When the cause, ignorance, is completely uprooted by its counterforce, wisdom, its resultant dukkha is likewise extinguished. This state of freedom is nirvana, lasting peace and true freedom. Therefore, the fourth seal of Buddhism is that nirvana is true peace. Okay, so the realization of emptiness and selflessness brings about nirvana. And from the Prasangika view, the emptiness of a mind that has eliminated the afflictions is nirvana, is true cessation and nirvana. Knowing the evolution of afflictions such as attachment and anger helps us understand the necessity of employing analysis to gain the wisdom realizing the selflessness of persons and phenomena. that eradicates ignorance. If we examine emotions such as attachment and anger, we see that they are rooted in grasping at inherent existence. The stronger our grasping at an independent I, the stronger our attachment to the concerns of that self. We cling to whatever is seen as important to the self and are hostile towards whatever impedes fulfilling its interests. That true or untrue? True. Yeah? Anything that, is seen as important to us, we become attached to and we cling to. Anything that interferes with our happiness, we think is wrong and bad, and we want to destroy it. And so that's the story of our lives. That's what we're doing in one shape or form almost all the time. Heading towards things we like, destroying or fleeing from things that we don't like. All the time, like this. Yeah? So Lama Yeshe used to say that we're like emotional yo-yos. And you can see it throughout the day, can't you? Yeah? If you watch, just watch throughout the day how emotionally, we feel like we're balanced, predictable people. But the only thing that's predictable is that we're unpredictable. Yeah? Have you ever noticed that with people, and you may know them very well, but when you talk to them, you're never quite sure when you start the conversation which person you're going to be talking to. Because, they could be in a bad mood and then you're talking to one person. Or they could be in a good mood and then you're talking to another person. Yeah. Kids become very astute with this. There was one man who lived in Boise. He had a young son, and his son told me, whenever Dad comes home from retreat, that's when I ask him if I can get things. Because Dad's in a good mood then. Yeah. But when Dad comes home from work and he's tired, I don't ask him if I can go buy something. Yeah. So, yeah, it's true. We don't always know. Sometimes you think you're going to meet one person, and then there's another one that's there. Okay, so then the question also comes up, what is inherent existence? It's a type of existence that doesn't exist at all, that we think exists. Okay, so it's like Santa Claus. There's a person that we think that exists that doesn't exist. Yeah, there's a lot of phony Santa Clauses out there. Yeah, and they're out even before Thanksgiving. Soon they'll be out in June. Yeah. But inherent existence, is something that we believe really exists, but it doesn't at all. So what it is, okay, flowers are really good example for this, but we don't have any flowers. So imagine a flower. We're good at visualization, aren't we? So if I'm holding a flower, okay, here's our flower. See? Isn't that pretty? Okay, so when everybody looks, they say, that's a flower, as if there's, it doesn't work. No, it does. Okay, well, let's try the cup. Yeah, or no, let's try the recorder. The recorder's good. Okay. So, when everybody walks in this room, you look at this, and it looks like there is a recorder here, right? Everybody agree? Yeah. There's not a hippopotamus. Yeah. There's not the Declaration of Independence. There's a recorder. There. Right there. There's a recorder. Okay. So it looks like the recorder has some recorder nature from its own side, that it is radiating out such that any reasonable person who comes in the room sees that this is a recorder, not a hippo. Okay? Now, if this thing had the nature of being a recorder, if there were a recorder that existed in this object, then we should be able to identify what that recorder was. We should be able to find exactly what the recorder is. Because we all agree this has the nature of recorder, that it's radiating out objective from its own side. But if we start taking this recorder apart, which I won't do, so you see, that's why a flower is good. You can take it apart. But if I took this recorder apart, if I took off the face here and put it here, and then I don't know what else is inside of a recorder. Batteries. Okay. And you put the batteries here. Then you put the chip. A chip here, the microphone there, the little outlets things here, the screen, and you put all these different parts all over the table. Are any of them a recorder? No. But weren't you sure a minute ago that this was a recorder, and it had the nature of being a recorder, and that any idiot who walked in the room would see it as a recorder? And if that were the case, then you should be able to find exactly what is the recorder. But then when we looked, we couldn't find it. Okay? So inherent existence is that type of existence that seems to exist from the side of the object, inherently in this thing. Yeah. So there's an appearance of inherent existence. There's an appearance that there is some kind of intrinsic nature or essential nature in this that makes it a recorder. Yeah. And we assent to that appearance and think it's true. But when we try and find an object that is inherently existent, we can't identify one.
Rather than trying to discover its nature through examining its substance, it seems that oftentimes we name things based on their functionality.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that its function is a recorder.
Mm-hmm.
Is that equally dismantleable as it is physically?
Yeah, because when you take the recorder apart, none of the parts of the recorder can independently function as a recorder.
So ultimately, all examination then again returns to substance. Because we're still.
What do you mean by substance?
Meaning that when we discuss its functionality, again, we're getting back to deconstructing its substance, the physical parts of it.
Yeah.
And names attached to physical substances rather than names attaching to functionalities.
But even like in the recorder, the functionality is to be able to record voices. Where are you going to find that functionality? Where does it exist?
And that was it. It wasn't a question of where, it's a question of, that it can do that function.
Oh, yes,
Right.
it can do that function. On a conventional level, when we put all the pieces together, it can function as a recorder. Okay? And it becomes a recorder because we conceive of all those parts put together that function in a certain way, and we give it the name recorder. Yeah. But in and of itself, that base has no findable recorder in it. Okay? So the recorder becomes an appearance that functions, but when you search for what it is, you can't find it. The distinguishing mark of being in cyclic existence is the mere I being under the control of ignorance and karma. That is, when the aggregates that are the basis of designation of the I are produced by these polluted causes, the person designated in dependence on them is bound in cyclic existence. As soon as that person eliminates ignorance, she no longer creates polluted actions that propel cyclic existence. Her cyclic existence ceases, and that person, that mere I, attains liberation. Gradually, she can also remove the cognitive obscurations that prevent omniscience. And when this is done, that mere I attains Buddhahood, the state of full awakening or non-abiding nirvana, in which the person abides neither in cyclic existence nor in the personal peace of an arhat's nirvana. Okay, there's a lot in this paragraph. Okay, the distinguishing mark of being in cyclic existence is the mere I being under the control of ignorance and karma. So the mere I, okay, the mere I is, okay, when we think of I, we feel like there's a real person here, right? There's me. I am here. Yeah. But when we look within what we call the basis of designation, what the thing is that we impute I and dependence on, it's the body and mind. Yeah. Can you find the I, the person, separate from the body and mind? Can the body and mind be here and children is over there? No. Okay. But then can you find whoever you are, in your body and mind? Are you your body? Yeah. So then you do a nice scan and look to see if any part of your body is you. Yeah, certainly, my big toe is not me. Is your brain you? Yeah. Because if we can identify something in the body and mind that is the person, then the word I and the name of whatever that thing is that is the person, they would be interchangeable. They would mean the same thing because we had identified something as being the I, the person. But when we look through our body, we can't find anything that's me. When we look through our mind, can you find something that is me? What we actually find is a bunch of different kinds of consciousnesses, a bunch of different kinds of mental factors, a bunch of different kinds of feelings of happiness, unhappiness, and neutral. But among all those different mental components, we can't find any of them that we can draw a circle around and say that one's me. Okay. So then that, when we see that, we begin to understand the emptiness of the I, that there's no inherently existent I that's findable when we analyze the basis on which we impute or designate I. But on the conventional level, we put the body and mind together and we say Joe's here. And that's fine, because that's how we communicate. Yeah? And so the mere I is the person that exists by being merely imputed on the collection of the body and mind. But the I, the person, is not any of the elements in the body and mind, just as the recorder is not any of the elements in this object. But when you put the object together in a certain manner, and it does a certain function, we call it a recorder. When you put the body and mind together in a certain way, and they provide, they do the function of a person, then we call it person, okay? Or I shouldn't say they do the function of a person. They function in a certain way, and so we impute person. So the mere I is the I that's imputed. There's no inherently existent I in it. In the aggregates, the aggregates refers to our body and mind. Okay? So the aggregates are said to be the basis of designation, and then the person is the object designated in dependence upon the collection of parts there. Okay? The parts could be physical, the parts could be mental, the parts could be attributes. Okay? But the idea is that however we break something down, we can't find something that is it from its own side. Okay? So the aggregates that are the basis of designation of the I are produced by the polluted causes, the ignorance and afflictions. So thus the person designated in dependence on those aggregates is bound in cyclic existence. As soon as the person eliminates the ignorance, then they no longer create polluted karma to be born in cyclic existence. And any polluted karma that is still on the mind stream cannot ripen, okay? And so that person's cyclic existence ends. Yeah, that's how the person gets liberated, even though there's no inherently existent person there to start with. Okay? So then the question comes up, but, what's wrong with there being an inherently existent person? Yeah? Well, the thing is that if a person existed in the way that we think they do, then, from their own side, independent of any other factors, then it would be completely impossible for that person to change. Because something that doesn't depend on anything else cannot change. Something that does not depend on anything else cannot function, because function involves interrelationship, which means dependence. Okay? So in actual fact, if things existed inherently, nothing would function. The only alternative is that they exist by being merely designated. Okay. So this is a lot of new words, a lot of new concepts. It takes a while to understand it, just even to get the words down and the concepts down. it takes even longer to try and identify those things in our own experience because we're so familiar with the ignorant view that we think it's real. So the example I use is imagine that you were born with sunglasses on. Just imagine, you came out of the womb with sunglasses so that everything you saw was tinted from the get-go. If somebody came along and said, you're seeing things, the colors you're seeing aren't the real colors, you're going to say, what are you talking about? I've been seeing these things since I was born, and I can still relate to the world. So, what's the big deal? Okay, so identifying inherent existence is as difficult as that. We've had it the whole time. We don't even recognize it. Yeah, you've been wearing sunglasses since you came out of the womb. Everything looks this way. Why should I question it? Why should I question it? Because I'm miserable. And because seeing things in a distorted way is the source of my misery. Okay? But it takes a while to understand this. Like maybe years if we're lucky. So, but, think about it and, mull it over and try and, do what you can to understand it. And something starts to become apparent. Okay? The 4 seals follow each other in a natural sequence. The existence of our body, mind, self, as well as the people and environment around us, is governed by causes and conditions. Their very nature is transient and momentary. The very causes and conditions that brought them into existence are the causes for their disintegration. In short, all conditioned phenomena are impermanent, the first of the 4 seals. The external environment, as well as factors internal to sentient beings, our bodies and minds, came about under the influence of our afflictions and polluted karma. Thus, they are unsatisfactory by nature. As the 2nd seal states, all polluted phenomena are dukkha. The story does not stop here because there exists a powerful antidote, the wisdom realizing the emptiness of inherent existence that is capable of totally eradicating ignorance, afflictions, and karma. All phenomena are empty and selfless, the 3rd seal. When emptiness is realized directly and non-conceptually, and the mind becomes habituated through it through consistent meditation, all afflictions and karma causing rebirth are eradicated. In this way, cyclic existence is ceased, and the 4th seal, Nirvana is peace, comes about. So that's how the 4 come in a consecutive order. Okay. Then, and see, this way of explaining things, I find unique to His Holiness. How he'll take these points and then tie them all together. Now he's going to tie the 4 seals together with the 4 truths. So it's so interesting how, he'll take all these things and then show you how they're interrelated in ways that you never thought of before. And I think that's one of the things that makes him a really great teacher. The 4 seals are related to the 4 truths. The first 2 seals, all conditioned phenomena are transient and all polluted phenomena are unsatisfactory, describe the first 2 truths, the truths of dukkha and its origins. But knowing this alone doesn't overcome our suffering. The last 2 seals, emptiness, self, and selflessness, and of course Nirvana, speak of the third truth, true cessations, and imply the fourth truth, true paths, as the path that realizes those true cessations. By realizing the true path, the wisdom realizing emptiness, that knows all phenomena are empty and selfless, we uproot the ignorance that is the root cause of cyclic existence. Its cessation is the fourth seal. Nirvana is true peace. Okay. So remember yesterday I said at the beginning, His Holiness just throws us in at the deep end, you know? But it's because he trusts our intelligence, and he, wants us to really think about things. So although this is something not easy to understand, he puts it right out there. And he doesn't expect us to understand everything and realize it right away. The whole idea when you're practicing the Dharma, a lot is about planting seeds, putting imprints or latencies in the mind. Because the more you learn something and review it and go over it, the more you become familiar with it and you begin to understand it properly. Okay? So learning Dharma isn't like learning something in school. Yeah. I mean, school, they teach you a bunch of stuff, and then you take a test and you tell the teacher what they already know, and you get a grade. Learning the Dharma isn't about getting grades. It's not about competing to be the first one in the class. Yeah. It's about really thinking about things over time and familiarizing our mind with them. And in that way, beginning to actually transform our mind. So Dharma practice is very much about character building. Yeah. We are building our character. We are transforming who we are. We don't have a fixed personality. Yeah, we don't have fixed characteristics or fixed traits. There's nothing about us that's fixed at all. Yeah, so we're trying to recondition things. Yeah, so that they function better. They're more realistic and they're more beneficial. Okay? So it's a process that only we can do of working on ourselves. Nobody else can do it for us. We can hire somebody to mow the lawn. We can hire somebody to drive us to the airport. We cannot hire somebody to practice the Dharma for us. Just like we can't hire somebody to eat for us so that our hunger will disappear. Yeah. So this is something that only we can change our own minds. When we do different requesting verses to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we're requesting their inspiration. But we've got to do the work. Okay? Because anyway, they're already giving us their inspiration. We're not picking it up. It's kind of like one of my friends described it as, the radio station is constantly emitting, radio waves. But if our radio is off, yeah, so the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are, sending their blessings and inspiration and help out. But, we're more interested in chocolate. Yeah. So a lot of this is this process of, reconditioning our mind, turning our mind towards Dharma, and beginning to understand these things. Yeah. So don't worry if it's all sounds a bit unfathomable at the moment. What the real thing to think about is whatever you do understand, apply it to your life. And when you apply that to your life and you see that it works and it helps you, that's where your confidence in the triple gem will arise from initially, because you can see, oh, this makes sense. When I practice it, it helped. Yeah? And then we take it from there. Yeah? So the Buddha must know something about what he's talking about, because when he described, for me, it was, I thought when I came to the Dharma that I was a pretty nice person, Yeah, I had problems, but they were all other people's faults. But I was a pretty nice person. And as I began to study the Dharma and then reflect on my own behavior and look at my thoughts, I was going, whoa, yeah, this is not a good scene in here. And I need to do some work. And so I started practicing, the different teachings and the different meditations, and they helped me. And one of the big aha moments for me was really understanding how self-centered I was, that everything I did in my life was done through the perspective of what benefits me, what gives me the most pleasure right away. And that was so shocking to understand. But it really gave me faith in the Buddha, because he was the only one who said that, aside from my parents who told me I was really selfish. But, I couldn't hear them when they said it. But, it was only the Buddha who said, take a look at your anger, and is your anger really justified? Is your attachment a correct perception? And so, when I started checking these things out, that's how I got some confidence in the Buddha's teachings. Okay. Oh, our time's up. Okay. So in the afternoon, we'll do the two truths. Yeah. And then we'll go on to another difficult thing about, gaining valid perception. Then after that, then it's easier to understand, but just as challenging to our mind. Okay. Because like I was saying Friday night, when I asked you if sometimes listening to Dharma teachings made you angry. Yeah. When we hear the truth about some of these things, and we have to look at our mind, at first it's like, I don't want to see my faults. Shut up. And then it's like, oh, my faults are harming me. If I want to be happy, I have to do something about my faults. So, okay, tell me more. Tell me more. I'll listen now.